everyone, and you're very welcome to I Went to Maynooth University graduate panel discussion today at our open day. My name is Ita McGuigan and I work in the admissions office in Maynooth University. And I love and I'm passionate about careers, and I'm very excited to hear from our Maynooth University graduates today who studied everything from arts to engineering, marketing and law. But I'd like to tell everyone, especially students who are studying their Leaving Cert and parents today, I would really encourage you to listen to all this presentation, regardless of if it's a different area that you're particularly interested in studying. Why? Because you will hear golden nuggets from real graduates on how they secured their first job, what extracurricular activities they did at university, what made them stand out on their CV, and how to really enhance your employment opportunities upon graduations. So I'm very excited to talk to our graduates, and I'd really encourage you all to listen to it. And I've given my email details at the end of this discussion should you want any more information after you hear what our graduates are going to say. So enjoy. So first of all, we're going to kick off with Connor. So maybe Connor, you'd introduce yourself and tell us a wee bit about yourself.
Hi, my name is Connor Flannery. I'm 29. I graduated from Maynooth in 2014 from electronic engineering. From there, I went to work in Accenture, an IT and management consultancy firm, for about 5 years. And I moved around 18 months ago to an IT security consultancy firm called Integrity 360.
Brilliant, Connor. Very excited about asking you some questions about those companies. Ailish, what about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ailish. I'm 26. I studied marketing in Maynooth. After MU, I worked in Kingspan Installation. I moved between a few roles there, and I loved my time there, but I decided that the beauty industry was what I wanted to be in. So I started as brand manager at Cloud 10 Beauty about 3 years ago. After a year and a half, I worked my way up to being the marketing manager. So now I work there and I look after all the marketing side of things. I've look after lots of international and more niche brands as well. And I do traveling with the job and I love it.
Wow, Ailish, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that transition from building products to beauty products. It sounds very interesting. Emma, what about yourself?
Hi, I'm Emily Carroll and I studied Irish and Media Studies with computer science. Actually, I always forget that. At Maynooth University. I'm actually still studying at Maynooth. I'm doing a part-time course in a part-time master's degree in literary translation from Irish to English, which I'm enjoying. And I'm the program director of Clorachtra for Badiuna Lifa at the moment. So managing radio station basically, and all of the volunteers who come and work for us, and managing music and kind of building events and things, which is a little bit different now at the moment that we're all online, but it's exciting. And yeah, that's where I am now.
Wow, Emma, that radio really sounds interesting. I love the fact that you studied computer science as part of your degree too. So looking forward to delving more into that. What about yourself, Matt?
So my name is Matt O'Boyle. I studied Irish and Geography as part of an arts degree in Maynooth. Graduated in 2015, where I spent a year then in the Students' Union as the elected president. And then from there, I went on into the tech world where I spent time as a salesperson, and now I'm in customer success, basically training companies how to use our software around the world. Bit of travel, bit of crack. Times.
Wow, love the sound of the customer success and the travel, Matt, and your time in the Students' Union. And I'd love to hear more about that and how you thought that enhanced your CV. That's brilliant. And last but not least, Sheena, what about yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Sheena Cahill. I'm from Longford. I'm 28 and I graduated in 2014 from a Bachelor of Civil Law and Sociology, which was the BCL Law and Arts in Maynooth University. I have also done my time in student advocacy. I was Vice President of the Maynooth Students' Union for 2 years, and then I worked with the National Students' Union as Vice President for Equality, and then President of the Union of Students in Ireland for a year. And from there, I've been a little bit all over the place between charity and NGO. Did my time in Bank of Ireland in internal comms and culture, and the Irish Family Planning Association as a project manager. And I've just started a new role as Head of Public Affairs and Communications with Gashga, the President's Award.
Wow, congratulations, Sheena, on the new role. And what I took from that is, wow, the vast range of experience you have, and as a law graduate, because a lot of people think as a lawyer or as a law graduate, the natural progression would be into solicitor or barrister or whatever. So love to hear more about the many range of career opportunities open to law graduates. So looking forward to talking to you on that. So I think we'll go back to Connor. And Connor, engineering MH 304 at Maynooth University. One of the most common questions I get asked, what is electronic engineering? Did you do a placement, and where can I go? And you mentioned briefly there the companies and the IT roles, and I think you even mentioned security. So I'm thinking, wow, electronic engineering and security. Tell me about your path there and why you think it is a good degree.
Yeah, cool. So electronic engineering, that's an interesting first question. What is electronic engineering? Because generally speaking, it encompasses so much. When I was filling out my CAO, my top choice was psychology in Trinity College, up until the day before the last change of mind, at which point I changed my top 4 places to electronic engineering in Maynooth and DCU. And it was a weird kind of swap from one to the other. And the reason I did it was because I started looking at the subjects that I was doing really well in, or felt I was doing well in the Leaving Cert. I asked a friend of mine who was in DIT at the time, who was studying electronic engineering, what kind of subjects do you do? And he said, oh, well, in first year, it's an awful lot of physics and maths and things like that. And then we move into things like programming. And all of it immediately, as soon as he started listing them all off, it ticked a lot of boxes for me, because up until that point, I suppose I just didn't know what electronic engineering is, or was. So that was kind of an interesting thing for me to find out, that, oh, start looking at what you like, start looking at the subjects that you're good at, and then try and find out what kind of subjects or what course you can do that will follow them. So that's how I got into electronic engineering. The good thing about electronic engineering at Maynooth is that in third year you do it's a mandatory placement. So the idea is that you're looking to get an internship somewhere. And if you can't get an internship, there will be projects and things for you to do in the college for the 3 or 4 months. I managed to get an internship with a tech and management consultancy firm called Accenture, and I worked there for 5 months. At the end of the 5 months, so this was my 3rd year of college, I still had 4th year to go, and at the end of my 5 months, I did an interview for a graduate position. And so in the September, by the time I came into college in 4th year, I had my job lined up for when I was going to graduate.
That's amazing. So like 12 months before you graduated, you had your job, your graduate job. So you had you just knew, get through the last year in college and I have my job because of that placement.
Yeah, without doubt. And that was a place I spent 5 years. I really kind of shaped the first part of my career coming out of college was shaped by this place, by Accenture. It was a very interesting place to work. Got a lot of exposure to a lot of different areas. It's a consultancy firm, and when you hear consultancy, a lot of people would ask, so what do you consult on? And the answer is it's really difficult to explain, because you could be in any number of the hundreds of clients, and they all are looking for something different. But the beautiful thing about it was that I got exposure into so many different areas of technology, and that got me to a point where I was ready to evaluate what I'd done and then start specializing, which is, as I mentioned before, why I moved into Integrity 360, the security consultancy space.
Wow, that's amazing. And what particularly do you accredit? Now, I could be biased here as an engineering graduate, but what do you think makes the Maynooth engineering graduate so highly sought after?
As somebody who can compare to the other colleges, having not really gone to them.
No, not at all.
I think there was a really good sense of community in engineering in Maynooth. In fact, there's a really good sense of community in the entire college. I could see, I'd say everyone here is nodding, because I'd say we all felt the same. And in particular in engineering, funnily enough, one of the hardest things for me to do in engineering was to actually meet people outside of my course, because we were all so close and we were all so tight knit. So for the first 2 or 3 years, the only people I really knew were, were my engineering classmates. When it came around to exams and things like that, we were all helping each other. You know, if there was someone struggling with any particular subject, because there was only around 30 of us, between 20 and 30 on any given year, you're all like really good friends. And it was, I don't know, I felt like it was not just an education experience, but a social experience. When the people from Accenture came in to interview for the internships, I very much got the feeling that they were looking for someone who didn't only know what they knew, or knew their field, but also knew how to be able to have a conversation and how to be able to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. That's obviously big in consultancy because you're dealing with clients. So yeah, I feel like the sense of community in Maynooth really brings that out, that social aspect that is very important when you're moving into a workplace, I think.
Brilliant. And that work placement really seems to have accelerated your career or employment opportunities in your final year and after graduation. So that's something to note if we have students here who are thinking about engineering. That's a real good selling point of our degree. Now, Eilish, I said from the start, and I suppose maybe, I've the affinity, I recognise the Monaghan accent there. And, once you mentioned Kingspan, I was like, oh, I know that company. And immediately I thought, a marketing graduate, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were the first class that graduated with the degree in marketing from Maynooth.
It was, yeah, we were first class to graduate under Dr. Christine O'Connor.
That's brilliant. So tell me about from Maynooth and your interest in marketing and how you came from, as I said earlier, the building products, the marketing there, right through to beauty products, because it sounds like your degree is so diverse, gives you a range of skills that can be adapted into any industry.
Yes, I actually, when I was doing my Leaving Cert, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I went to the open day in Maynooth and I loved the college itself. In comparison to the other colleges I have been at, I just loved the campus. And I nearly wanted to find a degree in Maynooth, but it was, I guess, it just depended on what I wanted to do. So I done a lot of research and I kind of looked at media studies, and then I came across marketing as a new degree. So I really got into it and I loved it. So I decided, right, that's the one I'm going to aim for. And when I actually started at MU, it was NUIM at the time. So it's now Maynooth University. And I guess that atmosphere was fantastic. I found everyone to be really, really friendly. And through the student union, I got to know so many people, which I guess made my college experience a lot more fun. The campus is very vast, but it's not too big. And like other colleges, it's very, very easy to get around. And the fact that the majority of my lectures were actually quite small in size, it meant I got to know everyone better, and I got to know my lecturers a lot better as well. So we all got on very well, and I guess everyone helped each other and was always there. And I think that's a vibe across the whole college, that if you do want help, it's always there for you. And as well, outside of the college, the town and the people itself are fabulous. In relation to the marketing of installation, I went into it and I loved it. I learned so much about it. And after 3 years with the company, I decided that, I wanted to get into the beauty industry. So I guess everything I learned in Maynooth, the modules I done from HR to business analytics to social media, they all stood to me. So although I hadn't got experience in the beauty industry itself, through what I learned at Maynooth University, I was able to adapt that and start at Cloud 10 Beauty. And I started as brand manager, as I said, and worked my way up. And I think that's all down to not only my education development within Maynooth, but also my personal development as well. And just, I guess, learning through everyone that I was friends with and all in my college as well.
Wow, Eilish, and I should have said to the listeners that I did ask for some. I don't know any of you, so I asked for some background before we were meeting, and this is the first time we met. And I read with interest. I was like, you went from Kingspan to the beauty industry, and then I read you went from San Francisco to London. So now, Eilish, I was at this stage going, oh my God, I wish I was back in college. So tell us about all the travel that your degree has taken you on.
Yes, well, at the moment, I'm not going very far like everyone else. I don't know, I guess now Zoom is the new thing, so whether we'll be even needing to travel anymore. So we'll see about that, please God, in the future. But when I started as brand manager, I looked after a brand called Benefit Cosmetics. So I travelled to San Fran with an influencer from Ireland. And we guess it was a very hard trip. We've done a lot of work, sightseeing and the likes. It was very fun, creating lots of content. And then I've also traveled over to London to meet brands, so new brands to come on our site, cloud10beauty.com. So we would meet them, kind of discuss our plans, and then also once they are on site, we'd meet and have reviews and chat and come up with plans for the year. So there is great scope for travel, especially within marketing, because it is one of those courses that there's so many. You can also build on a master's if you want, and you could go into economics, or there's accounting. There's so many opportunities. So if you do want to get into the business world, marketing is a great way to start.
So no regrets about Maynooth and no regrets about marketing.
Definitely not.
That's a good sign. Thanks, Eilish. I'm sure we'll come back with other questions. Emma, so I believe you were up for an award recently in your role.
Thank you. Yeah,
Congratulations.
Yeah, there's been a few the last few weeks, so it's been exciting. Especially we're a community station where I work at Maynooth University, so it's nice to be able to give something back to the people who volunteer with us, especially. I love that. And usually it's like a big affair and you have to give them free champagne and the ball dresses or whatever. So we didn't quite get to do that this year, but I know it's great and it's really encouraging as well.
So you had the media studies in Nua Gaeilge, and then you mentioned about the computer science there. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I'm always telling people, how diverse an arts degree is in Maynooth, that you rarely find graduates who are in the same role. So tell me about your transition, or why you chose to incorporate those subjects and where they have taken you to now.
And I kind of wanted to do a language and I wanted to do other things. So I had friends in Maynooth at the time. They're really involved in the students union and in the societies, and there just seemed to be a life, or like everyone has mentioned so far, just a community in Maynooth. And I kind of felt like I was missing that a little bit. So I transferred, and the transfer office were amazing, I have to say. And I even ended up doing like student ambassador stuff because of that, which got me even more involved in the community, which is brilliant. And I think that sense of community is kind of what's driven me as much as what I've learned. Like everything I've done since then has been community-based, or building communities, or community development and communications kind of roles. And so I definitely think that Maynooth has influenced me that way. But in terms of the degree, because I'd already done media, it was kind of a natural progression to go into media studies in Maynooth. And I knew that I wanted to do Irish at that stage. And then I was considering another language and maybe traveling or something, I'm not sure. But I just thought computer science was so, I don't know, it's so sought after at the moment, and it was skills that I could work into media studies, or I've used it with Irish even since I've left. And it kind of just gave me a good basis. Even now with the radio station, it's so handy that even just knowing the terms and things. I'm not an expert, but it gets me there. So yeah, it's definitely stood to me. And I ended up going from college and kind of being really involved in the Cooloft, especially the Irish Society, kind of got me my first job, I suppose. I ended up working with Conor na Gaeilge, who are an advocacy agency. And yeah, it was definitely my connection through the Cooloft to them that kind of landed me that role.
I think it's also important, Emma, whilst placement wasn't part of your degree, you showed the initiative to go out and find your own voluntary work within the radio sector. So with that, and your clubs and societies really enhanced your CV that enabled you to go on and get a job after graduation. Would you agree? And what would your advice be to Leaving Cert students or other parents watching this from the minute they start college, wherever?
Yeah, big time. It's definitely shaped me, and I think with the societies, it develops you as a person as well as the skills that you get out of it. I did learn a lot about, like, I was PRO for the Cooloft for a few years, and I did a few other bits for them, and that kind of stood to me in terms of media, because you're learning marketing, you're learning how things work on the ground, and that hands-on experience is as important, if not more important, than the theory you learn in your classes. So yeah, it definitely did, and I think that confidence you get from those kind of things is what makes you as well. And although there was a lot of hands-on experience, say in the media course, and we could go in and we made radio programs and that kind of thing, it wasn't until I went to Regina Liffa that I kind of realized, oh, I can actually do this, because I went in and I was like, I'm just going to do some research, I'll sit in the back and I'll like prepare news headlines for you or something. And it was actually staff member who's still working with us now, he was like, oh, will you record a demo for us? And I was like, yeah, sure, I can do that. And go into the studio with my little script, thinking I was recording off air. And he goes, okay, when the red light comes on, you're going to be on air. And it's those kind of moments where you're just thrown into something. And I panicked, but I got through it. And there was a lot of moments like that with Coolidge where we'd start an event or we'd start something, have no idea how it should work or how it should go. But by the end of it, you know, and then you do it again the next year and it's better. So definitely those skills have stood to me, and a kind of combination of all of those things is now what I'm doing with Radio and Lifa. So I ended up back there years later.
And you're doing some freelance work too, Emma?
Yeah, loads. So I suppose the Irish was something, and that was something I started back in college. They're always looking for content. If you want to write, if you want to get on the radio, if you want to do anything like that, you can kind of start with some of those community level organizations, or like places like Tourish, they take articles and things. So I kind of started writing for them first, and I suppose it builds your profile, it builds your confidence, and it led to me doing things in English as well, if that's what you want. And now, yeah, I do a regular segment on Radio na Gaeltachta, and sometimes on News Talk and a few other programs on RT1. So yeah, it's all about connections, I think, and that was something I really learned at Maynooth. And like everyone said, like when we logged in here, we kind of all recognized each other straight away, because it is that community, and it is like you say hello to everyone on your way to the lecture. So that's definitely part of the experience.
Yeah, well, you've just shown how diverse, you know, an arts degree is, and it's about finding what fits you. And whether you're unsure about a course, there are courses out there that will suit everyone, but also those skills that you brought in from clubs and societies, gaining that confidence, going out and showing initiative to get that work placement, all helped with your degree to getting you that job. And it sounds really, really varied, and it sounds really, really interesting. So thank you, Gurmila Mahagat. So Matt, what about yourself? Can I just ask? I recognise you from somewhere. Are you on television or?
I mean, for like a split second, my music is on television.
Wow!
So,
Wow!
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, blindsided. Yeah. No. So yeah, pretty much. I am in a band called Tebi Rex that actually formed in Maynooth through society events. I similarly went to college like Emma, not really knowing what I really wanted to do. I went to Maynooth based on kind of circumstance, location. I liked the campus. I liked the kind of culture there. A lot of my family members that went there ended up studying Irish and geography, and then getting really heavily invested in societies and clubs. And that's really where I kind of started to form my career path and started to form where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And I ended up meeting a bunch of people from this call. I ended up meeting some of my best friends today through events, like through music events and through Irish speaking events and through sporting events as well. Ended up forming a band that is still going to this day. I graduated in 2015, and now our music is being used on the air ad and that kind of stuff. So it's super cool. I always really advocate for people to go to Maynooth and consider it purely for that real community vibe and the amount of options you'll have in terms of people with like-minded interests to you. I know in school, people you're kind of with and you're bundled in together into this big building. In college, you're there to meet people with the same interests as you, and that's where you kind of really find out what you're good at, what you can handle, and what you're going to carry forward. And that's where I ended up kind of running for a student union election. Ended up working in the students union for a year as president there, where I learned all about, you know, how to run a shop, a restaurant. You know, you have 10 to 15 full-time staff in there, a bunch of part-time staff. Ended up working with Sheena on some amazing campaigns that we got to run on campus. And from that, then I ended up working in tech. So it's just funny how things can kind of snowball when you really just say yes to a lot of things and just keep going and putting yourself out there.
I'm really intrigued there, or really interested on how the clubs and societies shaped your career that you possibly hadn't considered in that first day that you started university. And I think that's a really important point to get across there to students. You go in with one idea, and I think Conor or Eilish or Emma possibly said it earlier, pick a degree that you know that you're interested in the subjects. And like what you said, Matt, the rest will follow by going to the clubs and societies, whether that's Irish Club or the Gaelic Club, the Irish Society or the Gaelic Club or the Harry Potter or whatever your interests are. I'm really, it's opened my eyes listening to you, Matt, there about how it shaped your career. And now talk me a wee bit about, so an arts graduate into the tech industry now.
Yeah, like pretty much when you're working with societies or in clubs, you are a bunch of typically younger people trying to achieve something, some big idea you've put together, and you have no idea how to do it. So you try and figure things out. You learn how to work with people. You learn about collaboration, and these things undoubtedly stand to you. It's not just a cliche that like working together stands to you. It genuinely does. And when employers are looking at people, they're looking at those people who have done these things and have achieved these things and gone into groups and done these student awards, etc., as opposed to those who just attended college, you know. And it really, really does stand to you. And that's where I learned what skills I was good at. I learned I was good at, you know, showing people things, training people, educating people, and kind of getting really stuck into something, learning something, and then being able to kind of spurt it back out my own way. And that's how I ended up getting into tech then, and being able to kind of just, I'm not a super tech head. I'm not very, I wouldn't be into the engineering side of things. I wouldn't be that kind of technologically minded that way. But I can learn how something works and show it to somebody else. And that's what I learned from college and through societies. And that's how I ended up working in kind of tech sales. And then I went into tech customer success, which is basically just training after sales.
Wow, it sounds really, really good. Sheena, what I loved about from listening to everyone else talk, I could see others nodding in agreement, or I'm just nodding in fascination here, but everyone's just, you know, it's their experience and what they've done in Maynooth in their studies, but also in the clubs and societies, really helps shape their CV and I suppose enhance their career opportunities. Tell us a wee bit about yourself. And there's one huge thing that I'm really, really jealous about. And it's I seen Boston mentioned down. So maybe you tell us about studying law, your career to date, but don't forget about that Erasmus bit that I'm jealous about.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was nodding because obviously I agree with what people were saying, but it's actually just like people were talking about the community vibe that Maynooth had, and also obviously the importance of getting involved in clubs and societies or in anything that's going on in college. Like, no more than a few other people on this call, I also had really no idea what I was doing when I came to college in, I think, what was it, 2010, 2011. I not unlike Connor, had various different things on my CEO form. I wasn't convinced about any of them. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was a bit lost, you know, at 18 and under a lot of pressure, like everybody else, to pick a path and stick to it and get something that's going to get you a job. And while that's all, you know, is important and is something that does, you know, come into mind and decision making, I think one of the things that I was actually told, and you know, I stand by it since, which is that it actually for me wasn't about the degree I got. It was about getting my primary degree, sticking with it, because I did enjoy it when I went, but then using my initiative outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
That I decided that, you know, while academics was never my biggest forte, like I was not top of the class, but I was someone who was really interested in my degree. I did law and sociology, and those two actually worked incredibly well together. And not very many students at the time had been taking the two together in Maynooth. And that experience also gave me the opportunity, quite rightly, as you said, to go on a study abroad. And I was very, very lucky to get into an exchange program with Boston College, which is, you know, a very academically high achieving university in the States, in Massachusetts. But one of the reasons that I went there wasn't just because it was letting me go to their graduate law school, which it did, but also because it was 2012 and I was going to be able to go and campaign for Elizabeth Warren for Senate and for Barack Obama for US president. And I did that. When I went over there, I decided I wasn't just going to make friends with all the other Irish people that were over there, who were also awesome, but I also got fully immersed in the community, not only you know, like I had in Maynooth, but also in Boston with the community students there, but also the society and what was going on. Like, for me, a law degree, absolutely, you asked at the top of the call about like, where can a law degree send you? But you know, I did think that my career path might be as solicitor or being called to the bar, but actually it was, my career path so far has been in challenging the law. And so not only in relation to the political sphere, but also in relation to social justice issues. And Matt already mentioned, like, we were so incredibly lucky, I suppose, to be in the right place at the right time in 2015, but to be interested, creative people working together in relation to marriage equality, you know, and it was out of Maynooth. I'll have you all know that hashtag Make Graw the law came out of, which was a national hashtag, but also campaign, and that actually all of us pretty much on this call were involved in. And also on that note, Connor is the fair example of the fact that not everyone in Maynooth is ginger, but you are also very much welcome. But yeah, Boston was like awesome. Came back, came out as gay, and then like got involved in the LGBT society in Maynooth, who were incredibly welcoming to this, you know, Longford rural woman who hadn't a clue what's going on with that side of things either. And, you know, it opened genuinely a world for me that wasn't just in the classroom, but was something that where I could apply the skills I'd learned in law of arguing and clearly talking. And I've addressed, you know, a couple of thousand people at a time, as president of the Union of Students in Ireland, but also in America and India. And just earlier today, I was speaking with the Embassy of South Africa. And so that was via Zoom. But like, that's the kind of thing that, you know, Maynooth gave me those opportunities and I took them. Yeah. And I wasn't necessarily, as I said, the best in terms of getting all my readings done. But I was someone who was interested, kept going to class, and then got committed to stuff outside of the classroom, and met really awesome people that helped me along the way too.
And I think what you're saying there, and so many people have said it before, it's taking those opportunities. It's getting involved in everything that makes who you are, but also, and I have to remember, we're talking about employment skills on this presentation too. When you talk about Barack Obama, when you talk about your Boston experience, and I seen that you also were an intern in their Oireachtas, you studied law, but you grabbed all these opportunities. You showed initiative to make your CV stand out, like all our other callers here. So would you really encourage anyone who's doing the Leaving Cert or going to whatever college, but especially hopefully they come to Maynooth, but to take all those opportunities and use them to shape, again, like as Matt said, you know, it was his involvement in clubs and societies that shaped his career path. It was your involvement and all these other things that made you think out of the box, I suppose, not down the solicitor route, but fighting for people's right by doing the advocacy work. So that would be a strong, I suppose, a recommendation or piece of advice you would give to people considering their CEO choices, is to grab all those opportunities.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know all that, like I kind of threw it at you, like in the sense of, if I was sitting here with either with my parents or something, like listening to this as part of Maynooth's Open Day, I'd be like, oh my, like I would not have seen myself as a person who would do those things. And I remember I did concern debating in secondary school, and like I kind of hated it because I was so terrified. I had awful stage fright. I like was so anxious all of the time. But the thing was that when I came to Maynooth, I had the opportunities open to me, and I stepped into them, and I tried, and I went into rooms where I didn't know anybody, and people were really sound. And there were other rooms I went into, and it wasn't that people weren't sound, but I just, like, it wasn't my thing. And that was okay. And that's the kind of thing that in particular clubs and societies do, which means you don't have to do everything, but there are loads of opportunities, and go in with an open mind to try new things and to give everything a bit of a go. And oftentimes you will land on stuff, you know, or meet, like, I mean, we made the point earlier quite rightly about the connections that Emma made around, you know, how you ended up in different things. I mean, I've ended up kind of as, you know, like running communications for Gashka, the President's Award, through a whole myriad of different experiences. There wasn't one path for me into that role. And I think that was very difficult for my parents to understand. I think that our parents' generation, and perhaps many who will be watching this, will think that you will pick something in college and that will be your role, and you will come out and you will graduate in that kind of field, and you will stay there, and there will be something solid for you. But that's actually not what employment looks like anymore. And the majority of us on this call have tried different things, sometimes in the same field as what we did our degree in, but many of us not at all in exactly the same field. Law and sociology is not directly related to communications or a myriad of other things, but the things that I learned in the degree they can be applied in many different instances. And Connor's point about being able to have a conversation with people is probably number one on most employers' lists. Because while the degree might tick the box to get you into the interview, it's the interview and the fact that you can relate to other people and find meaningful connection. Sounds really cheesy, but it's actually really, really important.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm gonna put out some questions there. And Connor, if what would your one piece of advice be to someone who's unsure whether or not engineering is for them? What would your one piece of advice on why they should consider electronic engineering? And I suppose if you want to mention some of the career opportunities or where your classmates, you talked about Accenture and other places where you were working, where are your classmates now? And your one piece of advice.
Sure. So first of all, and I'm just going to base this on some things that the other guys have said. It's very important to understand now that if you do make the choice to go into engineering or do something like engineering and you feel that you don't like it, your college experience isn't over. That's just not how it works. You know, there are loads of transfer options, there are things you can do. That's assuming that you don't like it. Okay. If you are considering engineering, there's not a lot of people that would be considering engineering that wouldn't have that kind of aptitude, or, you know, the enjoyment of, you know, working with numbers, or, you know, learning how to program a computer. So if you do get into it, just know that when you're doing your engineering degree, yes, you're doing all these courses, but as Sheena mentioned, you don't then just come out the other end and become an engineer. I'm not an engineer. I am an IT consultant, and the people that I worked with, and to be honest, when I got into Accenture, I wasn't with engineers either. I wasn't with other computer scientists. I was with people who studied economics. I was with a guy who studied philosophy. I was with a guy who had a PhD in biomedical engineering. You're going to finish your degree. You're going to get out there into the world, and you're going to realize that it was the process of getting the degree and the things that you built while doing that decided where you're going to be, not the subjects you took. So just because you're going to do programming today and tomorrow you're going to be doing, trying to think of like electrical circuits or quantum mechanics, which, you know, some of the stuff we did in first and second year, it doesn't mean that you're going to be a quantum physicist. It's all about the journey and the things you take from it. And as what I love is that 3 out of the 5 people on this call all accredited parts of their career to the fact that they were heavily involved in clubs and societies in Maynooth. And that's just showing the fact that it's so diverse, that it's not about the classes you're taking in all cases, right? It obviously has a huge influence on what you're going to be doing, but you're able to pivot in loads of different directions based on your interests. And I think what's actually important to remember, and Matt touched on this as well, is that when you have your family and you have the kids that you grew up with and you went to secondary school with, and you didn't pick any of those. And now you're going to go to college, and for the first time in your life, you're going to have the opportunity to pick the people around you, and you can surround yourself with people who you believe are interesting and are motivating and are driving you in the path that you want to go down. And that's what I felt I did. So my biggest piece of advice to people coming in is to make sure you keep that in mind and to find that path.
Brilliant, Connor. That was a very comprehensive answer, and I'm sure everyone agrees with it. I'm certainly nodding away here myself. I suppose, Emma and Matt, to yourselves, and you came in through MPH 101, so maybe 3 or 4 words each on why students should consider MPH 101, considering that you took computer science, Emma, that possibly, as you said yourself, you'd forgotten about it, and Matt, your career path completely changed with your involvement in clubs and societies. Tell me in 3 or 4 words why someone won't regret doing MPH 101 arts.
I would say, you know, it's broad, it's open, it's great for someone who knows what they like but doesn't know what they want to do. Just pick some stuff that you think you're good at, you think you might enjoy. There's always options to change in the first couple of months as well. So just go for it, give it a try and see what happens, see what sticks.
Thanks, Matt. Emma?
Yeah, I think the point that Matt made about choosing what interests you is probably the most important thing you could do, because I'm not sure my parents would be too happy that I say this, but like my CAO was filled out by my parents pretty much, and like medicine and dentistry were right up there. And I just knew that wasn't what I liked. I knew it wasn't what I was into. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew where my interests kind of were, and I've just followed that since. And I think that's the best thing you could do. And you will find something, you'll find your place, and if you're interested in it, you'll be good at it. And it's kind of interest over intelligence, like you will absorb what you are into, and it's kind of probably the best way to go, I think, if you're making a big decision.
Brilliant, Emma. Thank you. Eilish, back to yourself and marketing. And, you know, it's such an exciting career. What do you think someone who's filling out their CEO form, what type of person should consider marketing?
Similar to Emma, actually, I kind of, I guess, just want to touch on the point that I was kind of thinking, oh, primary school teaching, it was so, you know, set a job, you're going to get into it, that was it. And I just knew that wasn't for me, and everyone wanted me to be a primary school teacher, and that just wasn't for me. So I looked and I thought, and I said, right, marketing, that would suit me and my personality. Not only myself, I work with so many people that are so different to me, we're polar opposites. I think marketing is a great degree for anyone, introverts, extroverts. It just gets you into the world of business, and there's so many opportunities and avenues you can take in your career then. I'd always recommend the course, because not only do you have to do pure marketing, you could also then, if you want to, go into sales, go into PR, communications, economics, accounting. Like, there's such endless opportunities. So it's really a great degree that you can always build on as well. You don't have to do a master's. You can go into a business and build on it as well. So I think it's really good. It's for anyone, for all types.
Thanks, Eilish. Sheena, last but not least, and I suppose I'm looking for some more parting words of wisdom from yourself. So I'm going to leave the final piece of advice to yourself.
Well, I will say that look, if we're a good example of what comes out of Maynooth, then you should definitely come to Maynooth University, because like we came onto this call earlier, and not only did a lot of us know each other, but like immediately there was the vibe of like, yeah, like Maynooth, like it was, what a time, and we were so lucky to have had the opportunity to go to college there, and to still be benefiting from the networks and from the degrees that we did, or in Emma's case, you know, ongoing education. I mean, look at from the law perspective, you know, I didn't know what I was doing when I went into it, and there's so many things that you know, you can go for afterwards. It very much challenged me, and there was a hell of a lot of reading. But I think for all of us, I think we've like, I think Connor really nailed it when he said that it wasn't necessarily the modules that you took every time that would be like would like set the journey for you as to where you're going to end up. It was actually the lived experience of the degree and the participation in it, and the connections you made with people. And honestly, you know, it's such a privilege to be able to attend third level education, and to meet the people that you do, and to learn from them, and to challenge yourself, to get out of the bubble. Like for me, it was coming away from Longford and meeting other people with different experiences, and hearing about what they were doing and what their ambitions were, and challenging myself to be better as well. And I think that's what Maynooth very much does for all of us.
Very, very, very wise parting words. I would like to thank all my panel today, from Matt, Emma, Connor, Sheena and Eilish. Really appreciate your time. I hope everyone who's listening would agree with me. It's such an insight into Maynooth University, into life after Maynooth University, and what helped shape our panelists' futures today. I'd like to thank you very much. I'd like to just let everyone know my name is Ita McGuigan. I work in admissions, and feel free to contact me after this. My email address is ita.mcguigan@mu.ie. I will also have it on the slides after this. And I am available throughout today's open day on our live chat. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me.